Hey everyone, welcome back to Evony with Genghis. So, looking at Mount Rushmore here today, the 4 founding fathers of America. I've been wanting to make this video for a long time. I've talked with lots of people, historians you could say, in Evony, debated over who should be on this. At the end of the day, this is my opinion of who the 4 people are, and I wanted to get people who had different types of impacts on the game. I'll get into that. There may be runner-ups for certain positions, and I'll discuss that. Obviously, you can have your own opinion. Let me know in the comments. Love to hear it. There's lots of people out there who've had a big impact. I did struggle narrowing it down to 4. I'm going to be doing a Mount Rushmore of alliances very soon. So let's get to it. And just before we do, let's just go over the rules. There are no rules. I'm not holding anything against anybody in terms of, some people are like, oh, it's not their account, or, oh, they had such and such an advantage, that sort of stuff. Nothing, okay? These are just 4 people who I believe had a large impact on the game. So, number 1. Colt, the leader of IFT Alliance. They were the first Shalons champion, and they really, they broke in a new style in Evony, in Battlefield. They would go into Battlefield and hive up, and just like they were in their Alliance hive on server, and just start rallying people. And he was probably the first, or at least the first big impactful live streamer. So in some ways, he actually brought live streaming to Evony. Because of him, it might actually be why we have All-Star streaming and Shalon streaming and Evony promoting it. So this guy, massive impact. Not only did he bring in live streaming, and he was the leader of the top alliance in the game, and they won the first Shalons, and he was an amazing account. Like when he left the game, it was 220 million tech, really good account, max account. He also was the leader of the developer calls. He was the guy who would live stream developer calls and run the show in there, get people back on task. Hey guys, let's not keep complaining about small issues on your server. Let's get back on task. Let's talk about the issues that we actually care about as players on a large base. They're going to ignore us anyways, but let's keep this on task. So anyways, 3 major impacts for him on the game. So I believe Colt, definitely one of the 4 most impactful players in the game. All right, the second person on the Mount Rushmore of Evony, Sir Philip. Could there be any other choice? There's other players who are 100 billion, other players who have a very similar impact, but nobody raised the bar like this guy. I remember it was probably about 2 years ago, and his server was 1.5 months old, and people finally discovered this new player, and he was 3.5 billion in size. This was bigger than alliances back in the day. Quickly, he got to 10 billion. He raised the bar for everybody to try and compete with and to defeat, and he became a trophy in terms of people just wanted to beat his alliance in Battlefield or SVS. It's still like that. You still see this today in videos or on Facebook, different groups. Hey, we beat Sir Philip. He is actually kind of responsible. As much as Colt was responsible for creating hives in Battlefield and showing people how to rally as a team, Sir Philip actually pushed alliances to build a team properly just to beat him. Lots of these alliances you see today are basically just because the old alliances of 4 or 5 players couldn't beat this one guy. So people started to server jump and put lots of money into being in one alliance to beat players like him. Now, there's lots of people like him now, but he was the original behemoth of individual players. Pennywise, For those of you who don't know who this guy is, this was the original dominant player in all of Evony. I just did an interview the other day with Warzilla. It really wasn't an interview. That's actually how it turned into an interview. Warzilla is just an old friend, great player in his own right. And I was like, hey, tell me about Pennywise. And I wanted to make some audio sound bites that I could throw into this upcoming video. But then I just let it roll and it became an interview. But this guy, Pennywise, wow. This guy, like Warzilla said, was about 7 billion when nobody was a billion. This guy was so dominant. This is his actual Facebook page. Look him up. Pennywise Evony, 2012. Why 2012? When King's Return came out in 2017, was it? Because this guy played original Evony also. The Evony used to be browser-based, age 1 and 2, and this guy was dominant in that also. And then he joined the next one and spent a fortune again. In the Warzilla interview, we discussed how good Pennywise was, and his alliance was number 1 here in server ranking, and it wasn't even close. Like, it was like these points here, it was like 7 billion for Pennywise's server, and second place was like 200,000. Like, not even close. And then they were number 1 here in BOC. They were number 1 in BOG. And all of this was just because of him. He was so unbeatable. And like Warzilla said in those old interviews, you couldn't heal your troops. So if you were like a war maniac and someone who just wanted to kill people, that cost you thousands and thousands and hundreds of thousands of dollars in some cases because your troops died. There was like no hospital, no holy palace. So back in the day, Evony was a vicious game, and no one dominated as much as Pennywise. And look at this guy, Freedom. No, he is not the 4th person on Mount Rushmore for me, although I think he has a massive impact on the game, quitting, leaving everything, dismissing his troops. He now has a contest, giving away some stuff from his travels in his life after Evony. Check him out. But why I have him here is because Pennywise was the original Freedom. Like, what Freedom did was amazing because Freedom did it when the game was massive and on a big scale, and Freedom had a YouTube channel. But Pennywise did the exact same thing like 4 years ago. Pennywise was the number 1 player in Evony and then just said, you know what? F this game, dismiss, 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 and just left. Could have sold his accounts for tens of thousands of dollars back in the day when Evony accounts actually could sell for a good amount of money based on how much you spent in the game. And he didn't. But he did it with no fanfare. Not many know his story and where he is and why he did it. But Freedom brought this to another level. But Pennywise was the original in this. So this is the Miser. No, Miser's not on my Mount Rushmore, although I love the Miser. Excellent, excellent videos. The reason I'm here on server 82 is Miser had a teammate named Kranz. And Kranz was the original guy who made all the early spreadsheets for Evony. All these things that really, really helped people understand the game. So spreadsheets like this. He was the first guy who showed us the difference between flats and percentages and made spreadsheets that you could type into. So I could type numbers in here and it would tell me the equivalency of T14. So if I wrote in like plus 450, it would tell me what percentage that was versus, so it would give you an idea of what you should be doing with your refines. So these are early spreadsheets that came out. Kranz, I believe, was also on the beta server and had a massive account on there. So this guy had a really big impact. And this was back when the beta server actually got information ahead of time and could release it so that players could be like, whoa, this is upcoming. Now Evony just tests stuff on random servers and is like, figure it out. So those are my 4 people. So I have the original video streamer, Colt, who had lots of different impacts. I got the original great player, Pennywise. Then we have Sir Philip and the original sabermetrics guy, Crans. Shout out to Bad Story Dan, who has taken it to a new level with Evony battle mechanics. So those are my 4 founding fathers, most impactful players in the history of Evony. I'm looking forward to doing the one on the top 4 alliances. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Do you agree with my 4? Do you have 4 different players? Like, subscribe, leave a comment.